We have already experienced what it was like to be a crusader and a legionary, so why won't we go to the east? To the homeland of gunpowder, bushido, and anime. Forget about European wars. We will live one day as a Japanese samurai. Also, we will dismantle some stereotypes, learn about their everyday life, and analyze the movie 47 Ronins with Keanu Reeves. Meet our samurai, Shinze. It's 1610. Shinze is one of 4,000 other samurais. He serves his daimyo not so far from the castle Hidzi, from Higo Prefecture. His task is very simple, to protect his master's castle. In Europe, he would be called a guard. But we are in Japan and Shinze is samurai, even if it's the lowest caste. Daimyo is a bit higher in the ladder. He's also a samurai, but he rules over the castle and town. Daimyo has from 100 to a few thousand samurais like Shinze. Daimyo and people like him obey the shogun, the main samurai and governor of Japan. At this moment his name is Tokugawa Ieyasu, who ended feudal wars and usurped the throne. There were many intermediate classes like standard bearers, vassals, baisin, but we will not describe them at this moment. Let's take a more typical samurai. Shinze wears light armor and has a bow. Contrary to popular prejudice, not all samurai wore plate armor and had two swords. It was swordsman style. There were also usual and horseback archers. The Japanese art of archery lives to this day, and there are many competitions. It is called Kyujitsu, and up to 16th century it was honored even more than sword fighting. Of course, Shinze had a traditional katana, or even two of them. Samurai as a privileged class had two swords. Apart from katana, samurai had a small dagger, wakizashi. They wore it on a belt. Even when Shogun Tokugawa forbade public weapon bearing, samurais could take two swords where they wanted. As you have already guessed, samurai had all the power. If you think they were the dominant caste of the time, then you are absolutely right. Officially, Tokugawa divided the country into four social categories: samurais, peasants, craftsmen, and merchants. However, in his decree, he ordered that samurais stand apart and that they are more dominant. They had the right to kill and go. Every samurai from shogun to guard had the right to kill a dishonest man of another social category. In case of any offense, samurai could kill a person without any court. They could kill even for a side glance. It was so common that people stopped wondering. Of course, you can compare samurais with noblemen. As in any other country, Japanese noblemen had an absolute power. Although the key difference is that all samurais were real fighters. Shogun and our Shinze were brought up the same way. They were read legends about samurais. They were taught in a Buddhist style not to care about death and to school themselves to courage. Also, they obeyed their master. Before samurais had become a separate class, they were feudal lords. Imagine a rich lord living in his estate with his hundreds of peasants. At a whistle of his master, such lords would leave his estate and go fighting. It's somewhat reminiscent of Europe with its vassals. Of course, common people couldn't become samurais. To attain such title, it wasn't enough to be born in a family of noble origin. You had to pass difficult trials. For example, the father of our Shinze ordered him to spend few nights at a cemetery to strengthen his courage and spirit. Also, he often took his son to public executions to look at severed heads of criminals. It was necessary. A young samurai had to leave his mark on a head to denote his presence and trial passing. Shinze, as hundreds of samurais, was starved out, made to walk barefoot on snow and work for days without sleep. It was done to nurture spirit and humility. But the most important quality of all samurais was unquestioned following of Bushido. It's a code of conduct of Japanese warriors. It is quite often compared to the code of knights, and it's incorrect. Knights' code was common, and often its rules were opposite. For example, it was a usual thing for samurai to attack from the back, because the main goal is always victory. However, to knights it was an offense. Of course, they often violated the code. It's a myth that every samurai who violated the code had to commit suicide. They would have disappeared very quickly as a class. Suicides didn't happen that often. Samurais would usually just lose respect. Our Shinze is a good person. He didn't violate Bushido. Does it mean he's protected from suicide? According to the code, his life belonged to Daimo, the samurai of a high rank. If his daimyo had been killed and there were no other commands from shogun, all samurais of such daimyo committed a ritual suicide, zunzi. However, it was also very rare. Daimyo would often fall in battles together with his army, so overall Shinze is protected from sudden death. But how much he earned? We have some bad news. It is hard to calculate how much rice could Shinze buy for his salary because Shinze was paid in rice. Despite the fact that Japan at the time had gold and silver coins, the bigger part of the salaries, taxes and other payments were made in rice. In different provinces they accepted different kinds of money. That's why rice considered a currency that was measured in koku. One koku weighed 150 kilograms or 400 grams of rice per day. Not so much, doesn't it? By the way, they use this measure in Japan to these days, but now it's about 180 liters. Still, not everything was bad. Our Shinze, as a usual warrior, received around 20-30 koku a year. His daimyo could earn around 1 million koku a year. The most successful samurais in high ranks received around 100 koku. Is it much? Let's try to convert it into money. As we have already said, there were many currencies, and samurais decided what currencies they needed and what to do with them. Let's take the most popular coins that were minted by the house of Tokugawa. It was called oban. In 1601, an oban corresponded to 30-40 koku. So, if we round the numbers, Shinze received 1 oban a year. By the way, you have probably already seen oban. It's what you see on the head of Pokemon Meowth. The real oban possessed exactly this shape. Shinze had 1 oban, which corresponded to 10 koban or ryo, to other coins of lesser value. Luckily, we have a document with prices of the age exactly for ryo. So Shinze has 10 ryo a year, or 8 tenths a month. Let's see what he could buy for 1 ryo. The list is big. 750 saunas, 214 visits to a barber, 158 watermelons, 278 books, 30 nights in a hotel or 43 liters of sake. Also 1 ryo is 1,500 dango, 140 kilograms of miso or 250 theater tickets. Even if we are mistaken and Shinze received half of the sum, he could still buy 150 sandals a month. It makes sense considering that although our guy was in the lowest ranks, he still was a samurai. They had to train at least 4 hours a day, be always clean-cut, well-groomed and smell good. Bushido implies that samurai must be an example for others. That's why Shinze spent a lot of money on the looks. If everything is so great, how could there be run-ins from that movie with Keanu Reeves? We have already mentioned it. Run-in means a samurai without a lord. So, their existence completely contradicts Bushido. Samurais could turn into run-ins for various reasons. Some had their master killed or go bankrupt. Some gave their master the finger to become free. Although Bushido doesn't allow such things to happen, things often go sideways. Eventually, the government adopted the rule of 7 leaves and 8 returns. So those who cherish freedom could occasionally leave their master and return. If our Shinze lose his master, he will become ronin. It wasn't great. Other samurais hated them and sometimes were jealous of them. Ronins were outcasts. People told horrible tales about them. In reality, they often became bounty hunters, mercenaries, or even merchants. No one forbade them to do business, but the majority of them stayed samurais. That's what you learn from the movie 47 Ronins, which is based on real events. In 1701, Daimyo Asano was condemned to seppuku for attacking samurai Kaira, who was close to shogun. In the result, 47 of his samurais became Ronins. It was an unusual situation. It was stupid to ask them to kill themselves, so they were forgotten. Now, these new Ronins forget nothing and decided to avenge the death of their master. They distracted attention of Kaira, pretending to be drunkards and being happy with what they had, while planning their revenge that they executed in 1703. As a result, Shogun was in a difficult situation. On the one side, Ronins killed his sidekick, which must be punished by death. On the other, they followed Bushido till the very end, and it made them popular among common folk. Shogun decided to permit ritual suicide, leaving alive only the youngest samurai. For the most, samurai destiny wasn't so romantic. There were feudal wars, villages were attacked by Ronins, also their Chinese and Korean neighbors raided them from time to time. Most often samurais died in a battle, which was an honorable death for them. However, the percentage of deaths wasn't very big. Because, as we have already mentioned, samurais were well trained and always continued training. Life of Shinze wasn't easy, but in comparison to some other historical ages, he lived a great life. We will also live a great life if you like this video and recommend us other warriors to discuss. See you soon.